Hello, everyone. It is April 13, 2022, and it's a Wednesday, and let's discuss the Philippine market update for today. Okay, so let's take a look on our platform, WealthSec. You can see that today, one of the top gainers is CTS, or the CTS Global IPO. So it's up 17%. It opened its IPO at 1 peso in the small cap in the Philippines, and it has been well received. Let's take a look at the index and the stats as well for the day. So this day you have market value still low at about 1.9 billion, and the top gainer for the day is Emperador, rising 20%. Let's read up on that later on. Monday is up 2.8%, and the rest are mostly unchanged. So let's just read through the index movers and then go to Emperador and CTS as well. Emperador is rising a huge gain, 20% today, 17 pesos. SM Prime trading almost unchanged here, about 36 pesos. PLDT is 18.28, Monde is 13 pesos. JG Summit is 55, Metro Bank is 54.5, URC is 117, Converge is 29.50, ICT is about 220, Ayala Corp is 770, Jollibee is 218, Asen is 8.4, AGI is 12 pesos, BPI is 98, Ayala Land 34, Mega World 2.93, Wilcon 26 pesos, AV, Aboitiz Equity Ventures 55, GT Capital 512, Globe 24, Aboitiz Power 35, SM 865. Then the drops of the day, Lucio Tan 888 LTG, Pure Gold 36.5, MPI 3.8, Robinson's Land 19.86, Meralco 362, San Miguel Corporation 107, BDO 128.7. Now let's take a look at your stats for the day. The top traded is none other than the IPO, CTS. CTS Global is the top traded with value turnover of about 500 million pesos and 5,000 trades. It is closing at a very high note for the day, bullish at about 118 so far of this time of recording. Now, the other name that is also rising with large volume and value traded is Converge. Converge is up 2%, 29.55. We'll take a look at the 10 billion peso maiden offering bond of Converge. Now, DMC is continuing to be up here at about 8.68. Emperador, of course, is the largest, also one of the large trades, 169 million in terms of value. 14 pesos is closing now to about 17 pesos. Monde still in the top traded names, 13 pesos despite inflation. Metrobank still strong here at about 55. ASEN 8.4, which is also something to discuss on the disclosures. So you are seeing that the top five being value traded for the day is also worth mentioning and reading about. So let's go through these. All right. So CTS is, of course, a brokerage firm that is investing 1 billion. I think it's about more than a billion pesos. IPO proceeds will be relegated 50% to the Philippine market and 50% to the global market. They did report very good performance since 2019, i.e., for the last 3 years, they were profitable. But I would surmise that CTS, because people are asking, is it treated as a hedge fund of the Philippines? And my view is that yes. So CTS is, of course, actually, there was a written profile in Inquirer, so I'll just read to you about that. In Inquirer Business, around few days ago, April 9, this was shared across Philippine Daily Inquirer by Doris Dumlao Abadilla. And in her title, this is not just another stockbroker. So indeed, you can see in the picture, this is the founder and also the largest discount brokerage firm in the Philippines. You could argue the Charles Schwab of the Philippines or the Interactive Brokers of the Philippines. That would be the Lee family. So that is Lawrence, Edmund, and Edward. And Eleanor is not in the picture, but basically it's a family of who are very much enthusiastic with the stock markets locally and globally. So this IPO is gonna be 1.37 billion pesos. So I would surmise 370 million will be more on OPEX, and the clean 1 billion pesos there is going to be for the markets, and they're doing it as 50-50. So it says here that you are essentially buying an equity fund manager who is looking for alpha or profitable trades that are going to beat benchmarks. So, of course, this is going to be actively managed. It's not a passive income. And what they do is that they said that the 550 million peso portfolio so far that they have has a team of about 30 traders, each of whom has functioned relative autonomy while working within the group's playbook, which is sort of like how a franchise store is, which is you've got a method and we have they have a risk management. So they can go as high as getting 25% on their profits on top of their other performance bonuses, because the basic salary is not a big deal. Indeed, most of these traders are usually getting paid around just a minimum, but really how they get their bread and butter is how much they earn from their profits. So it's more of a profit sharing scheme. You can see here that CTS today has a dynamic pool of traders. They're saying most of these are aged 27 to 28. The oldest are in their early 40s, and most of them are the younger traders tend to stay longer in the space where the bar is getting higher and higher. So the brother, which is Lawrence, Lawrence's younger brother, which is Edmund, set up Calum, who is basically teaching and doing a recruitment for these people who want to learn, and those top students would then be offered a position if they wish to work with CTS. And usually these people could be says here that they're estimating about 2 years to develop a trader from scratch to a bankable store. So CTS believes that they could teach people and they could find people for a distinct trading system that works. And so far, if you look at the income statements that they've reported here, as of September 2021, they delivered 27 million of net profit out of 107 million in revenues. And then in 2020, they earned 46 million out of 157 million revenues. They believe that it was simply a matter of OPEX. That was the reason why 2018 and 2019 was unprofitable for them, incurring 8 million and 30 million. But they were actually achieving returns of 27 and 23% respectively in those years. So usually, my assessment for CTS, for the people who were asking me about this, is that you really are getting in this more of a stake in the trading system of Mr. EKL, and how he hopes to clone himself and his trading system as well as to his family. So it's really more of a long-term business, and it is highly scalable. Obviously, you've seen hedge funds trade hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide. In fact, billions. Of course, Warren Buffett is a more than $200 billion in asset under management. So I would say that this is a very small sized IPO in terms of the opportunities that $20 million can really grow into. So if you are really long term, and this is coming me from a fundamental bias, because there are very few people that can really manage huge amounts of money. And it so happens that for this group of individuals, and I'm talking about their founder, i.e. Boss Edward Lee, I would say that these types of people could generate the alpha that most Filipinos would want to seek when they want to get an investment abroad without having to do so on their own. Nonetheless, with the market ecstatic about the performance of CTS today, getting 18% increase in a single day, I do have to warn people that making money in markets, say 1 billion pesos, can they earn 230 million or 250 million pesos consistently every year? I would say that they will take time to validate. And as the bigger capital size is there, and as the markets are getting volatile and harsh, making 25% puts them into the top 10% of the overall worldwide traders, and 90% actually of hedge funds. And I would say this, 90% of hedge funds actually lose on the passive versus the passive benchmark. So when they say that they are active alpha generators, they try to seek to outperform the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 for the US, and they try to seek to outperform the PSCI index, which is in the Philippines, as I've read that they are doing a 50-50 split here. So in my view, while I am bullish, I would say caution as well to being overly bullish. If you're making something like, if 1 peso hits something in the realm of 1.5, which is a 50% increase, I think that is too much, given that a company like them, it is a good long-term idea to own it, but in the short term, if you get 50%, that is magic money that you should lock in within just a few weeks or a few days or a few months. If and when possible, that CTS does go as high as 50%. Now, would CTS go down 20% as well? Yes. Obviously, if their company will not earn money in the first year, or they actually lose money from that 1 billion peso IPO proceed, example, they get a loss of 10%. Now, I don't think that they would really lose a lot of money, knowing that they have a system in place. But my sense is that assuming a straight line path forward is not really going to be as simple as that. So this business, in the trading business, is gonna be volatile, and so I expect CTS to have peaks and troughs rather than a straight line up. So a 50 to 100% comfortable move, like 1 to 2 in a short span of time, that to me is overly aggressive, overly bullish in terms of assessment for CTS. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that I am bearish the company at all. In fact, I did buy today at 105, and then I really want to just put a small bet and see how things play out. But I'm gonna tell you that I'll be one of the people who flip if ever it does rise too fast, too hot within, say, 1 year and let's say I have a 1 year to two years time frame or 3 years time frame. If CTS manages to go up and up in that 2 to 3 year time frame, it's not wrong to actually be taking profits if it hits somewhere in the 50 to 100% zone. So that's just how I will analyze and view CTS. Now let's read about Converge here. Converge here is up 1 to 2%. Converge today is trading Philippine bonds. You can see here, I'll just read to you the Converge press release. So Converge needs a lot of capex, as broadband increased infrastructure in the Philippines will need a lot of money. So other than the IPO that they've done, they listed 10 billion pesos, a maiden bond issue on PDEX. Converge is the first tranche of a 20 billion debt securities. The bonds are 8 times oversubscribed, carrying a gross interest rate of 5.5% per annum, fixed for the next 5 years until maturity on April 8, 2027. So we know that the Philippine market has very high inflation, and a lot of people, instead of putting their money to cash, has really considered a lot of these maiden bond offerings, as interest rates are expected. Well, for a company like Converge, they know that interest rates are expected to go higher. So they would like to borrow money now and fix it at 5.5%. Similarly, a lot of other people who have a lot of liquid investments, who doesn't want to park it into cash and who doesn't want to park it into equities, would find a safer alternative for some of their money to invest into these bonds by allowing 5% or 5.5% to be their asset allocation. I think that is fine. So it's a good IPO. I mean, it's a good maiden bond offering for Converge to do so, and it is a markedly good time for most corporates to borrow money while interest rates are still here about 5% before it really shoots up. Because as inflation really goes higher and higher, the chances are also that the bonds will go down, i.e., the yields will go up, i.e., 5.5% could go 6% or 7% or 8%. So I don't know how high these interest rates will really climb up in terms of borrowing cost of money. But from a corporation standpoint, they want to borrow and lock it in within the next 5 years before things go ballistic. Okay, let's take a look as well on the news about SPNEC and ASEN. Let's just read through this. So SPNEC, which is another solar company in the Philippines, is saying here that they want to allocate. So take note that SPNEC has a secondary at about 1.68, and they want to allocate the proceeds to advance funding for takeoff agreements on Terra Renewable Holdings and SP Holdings Inc. We're just seeing really that they are deploying part of the SPNEC IPO now. So it's just really part of that program. It doesn't mean that it's already profitable. Okay, so ASEN is also doing the same. Reading through the company disclosures of ASEN, it says here that ASEN has been adding more joint ventures to enable more renewables. So ASEN just signed an amended omnibus loan and security agreement for South Luzon Thermal Energy Corporation with BPI and RCB as the lenders. The loan will allow them up to 13.7 billion pesos to refinance SLTech's outstanding 9.8 billion peso loan facility, funding and partial redemption of capital in SLTech held by ASEN, financing other transaction related expenses, in turn using this equity redemption to reinvest in renewable energy projects. I would say that from a long-term perspective, ASEN is doing what it wants to do. So this is the execution phase for ASEN. And those long-term investors on ASEN should be fine and happy on how it's being developed. So you're really looking here for a lot of generating energy power in the entire Southeast Asia. So look here, their goal is supported to 100% renewable energy by the next 5 years. And they're just keeping on deploying that and sharing to the market how much money they borrowed, how much they are refinancing, and so on. So I think that you want to just keep on continuing to watch out for ASEN on dips, as it's really all about the loan segment, and it's actually positive for the banks that there exist these projects that they can comfortably fund and get some net interest income as well. So I would say that it's good. It's a win-win for RCB and BPI loaning money to Ayala Corp. So let's just go through these charts, guys. All right, let's take a look at the charts that I mentioned for now. So CTS is of course new IPO, so there's nothing much to say here except the fact that the market is very happy, or at the very least very bullish on the founder. So here you could see that that is a very huge jump spike since the beginning, so since open until close. And I would assume that the market will just continue to trade this on the upside, whether short term or long term. So in the short term, I can't really decide what to do, so I will just hold. If you have position on CTS, just hold on to it, since it's not really that much of a, I mean, it's a small IPO, as you know. It's a $20 million, $20+ million IPO, and it is something that other people, long term or short term, generally want a stake upon. So I would say that the investors and the traders are both on the alignment that this is a well run management company. And if things go well in the next 5 years, this 1 peso could easily just double, either 3 or 5 years. So it really depends on execution, if you ask me. But whether it's a straight line up, my argument is, well, it's probably going to have some troughs, peaks and troughs, because not every business can just go straight line up. Okay, so, and that includes trading the markets, no matter how experienced you are. Okay, let's also take a look at Converge here. Okay, so Converge, I think that is a positive thing for Converge, and that might have been the reason why Converge has been going up and is able to really continue their balance sheet performance and have a better way to grow. So this is, however, a growth stock. Be careful though, because in a rising interest rate world, growth stocks really have a difficulty. In some ways, Converge tried to mitigate this risk by getting that 20 billion peso loan, so they would not be having any problems on rising interest rates in the next 5 years. Nonetheless, they have to make sure that their operating profits continue to grow so that they could eventually pay that 5-year 20 billion peso loan. So in that case, let's stay neutral to bullish for Converge. Okay, let's take a look at ASEN. ASEN has been really just on the execution side at this phase. For ASEN, you're still seeing that it has a general downtrend, could still go down to as low as 7 or even 6. But I'd say that there is that temporary bullishness. However, I would say, since it's still in execution phase, you should not expect much profits on AC Energy. This was where people were very much happy on the transition and the plans, and this is where the execution phase is gonna be. So my idea is, in fact, that CTS would be doing something like this, i.e., right now you're doing this one, which is the initial run-up phase. Eventually, there will be a consolidation. So I'm not gonna say that, oh, it's gonna go up to 2 or 3. I don't know. But what I'm saying is that at some price, it might be ridiculous if it goes up super high in such a short time. That's about really how I think, but that's really just my view. Again, that's just my opinion. Okay, so I think that's really what happened here as well in ASEN. 2 went to 12, and of course it had to pull back. In fact, some people would have pulled back and sold somewhere here already between 6 to 9, because they believe there needs to be a lot of execution within the next 2 to 3 years, which is where ASEN is today. Next 2 to 3 years, 2021, 2022, well over 2023, it could still trade within 6 to 9 in my view. Okay, let's take a look at other news here. All right, so Converge, as and okay, let's take a look at Emperador. All right, so what led to the Emperador price increase? Let's read through this. Emperador press release. Emperador is now obtaining the eligibility to list from SGX for the secondary listing. So they want to list in Singapore to get better value for their shares and better market recognition that they are a global company. So I'd say that this is a good thing for Emperador shareholders, and that could have been the reason why Emperador shot up. So let's go to Emperador ticker, Emperador Inc. So eventually, if it will get listed in Singapore, there will be more liquidity and more visibility. We won't know exactly what would the Singapore market really pay for Emperador, but the market is ecstatic about this news. Nonetheless, even from a chart perspective, just from a chart perspective, although there is a sharp increase, you should note that there are some resistances here at 18 to 20. So let's just read through what Emperador's disclosure is sharing right now in the Edge press release. Wait lang. Company disclosures. Okay, so I'll read that to you. Says here that Emperador just obtained the eligibility to list on the main board of the Singapore Stock Exchange. And we would like to express our gratitude to Singapore, making our company truly global with a footprint of over 100 countries. Of course, we have leading positions in brandy and whiskey, and it has always been our goal to have greater access to international investors. So that would be good. Okay, I wouldn't know exactly how much they would get valued upon by Singapore. So for now, it's a watch and wait. It's a more of a wait and see. But it is truly positive for a Philippine company to get listed globally, at least in Singapore. So it's really good if more Philippine companies, even like the likes of SM Investment Corporation, also list abroad, or even Jollibee. Okay, let's read your question. What do you think will be the catalyst to end this ridiculous inflation number? Whatever happened to the revenge spending phase? Now, we have to understand inflation is something that can be controlled only if you have adequate supply. So, for instance, to tame inflation, you have to release strategic petroleum reserves. However, if you cannot drill more oil and you cannot explore more oil and gas companies, there is no solution to the rising oil prices. Therefore, the farmers in general or the oil and gas exploration companies who can drill oil for the next foreseeable 1 to 3 years will get a very good profit. Because, in my view, unless two things happen, you destroy demand, which is not something everyone likes, because destroying demand equals recession, or you want to lower the prices of oil to increase consumption. But to lower the prices of oil, which will trickle down to lower the prices of wheat and natural gases and every other food group in town, to lower it down, the only way you can do so is either you open up all the drills in the world and start drilling more oil. US said that they have tons of US oil reserves today, and they started unleashing it. So 180 million barrels was already signed and disclosed by Joe Biden just to tame oil. That's why from $125 oil is now $100. Nonetheless, you don't really expect these economic warfare between US and Russia and US, EU, Russia and China to end anytime soon. Which is the answer to you, the catalyst to end it is very low probability. You have to adapt to it. You cannot escape it. in order to adapt with a high inflation, you do have to need an ownership in these oil and energy and gas companies. Or you have alternative energy sources, where in the Philippines, what are the alternative energy sources? In some ways, if you have really high oil prices, people would also begin to take a look at other alternative energy, which is why we've seen a lot of money have been deployed towards nuclear, and nuclear plants need uranium. So worldwide, we have been seeing a lot of people to stem inflation or to make sure that they are inflation proof. To inflation proof their portfolios, they own silver, they own gold, they own oil, they own uranium. That I mean the Filipinos own nickel, copper, lithium, because these commodities are very much needed in a world, and until the world has no solution, these prices will keep on going up, whether slowly or rampage up. There's a question. Achiniki, is FGen good to buy now? FGen is actually a natural gas energy provider. So the answer, in my view, is a yes. But is FGen listed still in the Philippine market? Di pa ba ito na ano? It's still listed. Okay, 25 pesos. Sorry. Kasi yung EDC, no, na ano, na unlist na ano. So I was only looking when it comes to always about energy. I've always just been looking on Aboitiz Power, on the coal plants like Semirara. But yeah, in fairness to them, natural gas has also gone up in lockstep with a lot of natural resources. In fact, this is the United States Natural Gas Fund, UNG. So sometimes I think the world reacts faster than the Philippines. So I mean, look at all the energy names. These are just really going up, no? So and even the oil tankers, the cargos. So actually in the Philippines, your ICT would continue to go up, eh. International container terminals. That's why it's just been ripping higher and higher, 60 to 219, with almost not much amount of setbacks. Any dips have always just been bought. Um, my idea is that really in an inflationary world, while I am actually of the view that companies who continue to be patronized by Filipinos will nonetheless still earn money, albeit slower and smaller income, you want to be in the view that your operative base case has to be high inflation, perhaps lower demand, and how would I navigate that type of environment? And the answer really is you have no choice. Your portfolio has to be either buying low and selling high, or which is making a neutral range, i.e., okay, let Jollibee fall 180, 190, I'll be a buyer. Because obviously, even in a recession and even in inflation, there are companies who will, at the very least, still maintain their market share and still maintain their sales revenues. Whereas everyone else might probably have a difficult time, these companies can still manage that. The bigger you are, the better your balance sheet. Unfortunately, in a high inflationary environment, all consumer stocks would really have a suffering, by the way. It has nothing to do with whether it's big or small. Everyone, big company or small company, big restaurant, big fast food chains, they'd have a problem. So your operative word is that limited upside. Since everyone would have a limited upside, that's the reason why we said PSEI 7275 take profits. And then you, of course, want to buy it back at 6.2 or 6.3 or 6.4. And you have to understand, high interest rates would really mean that higher profits for banks. So the Philippine banks like BDO, BPI, Metro Bank, because they would still continue to still lend money to corporations who want those money locked in at certain interest rates, I would say that these banks would be able to net a higher profit, at least in the short term. Nonetheless, this is also a big problem. It's always a neutral thing. Banks would have perhaps a better net interest margin with interest rates going up, but how would they get affected in terms of loan growth if businesses stagnate or decline? Right? So a business like a bank does not also relish a recessionary or a contraction in the economy. So we will see how the government in the future of the Philippines, whoever wins, plans to address the crisis. And my sense is that they will try to address this crisis in some ways importing quite a lot of oil abroad. Um, it's obvious that whoever wins, some people would side with the with kasi it's very hard. You know, if you're a politician, your your Filipinos will go hungry with very high oil prices. They will I mean, ask the drivers who have to transport every day. The taxi drivers, the motorcyclists, they would clamor even if they know that they condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So I'm not sure what really is gonna happen because discounted oil today is a function of geopolitics, no? So oil is a big ticket item for for everyone, and we know that it's just gonna stay elevated. So yun, I would be more on the bullish side for oil on any dips. We are still buyers there. In the Philippine market, since your mining stocks are very few, you do still have to be bullish on all the mining names. No matter if you find it high, unfortunately, those are still gonna be, in my view, still the top idea. You know, this drop of mining is actually more of a bullish idea to enter some nickel at 7.5 until 7. Um, Actually, gold is really bullish abroad. I'm looking, actually, I've been buying some gold, $1940 until 1970. You can see that sharp rally. I would still consider gold going up. It's funny that in the Philippines kasi, we don't have direct correlated trades. Like you might think Philex and APX are gold miners, but sometimes it's easier to just buy gold abroad. So I would argue that I'm just buying GLD call options. So this is the Spider Gold Trust. Sorry, that's Spider in New York Stock Exchange. No, $180 yan. So at 175 to 180, I'm bullish to buy here. Actually, we've been bullish kahit dito pala. So yeah, I'm bullish on miners, and I would argue that for the Filipinos out here, it is very easy to open an account globally, and you should do the best thing for your portfolio. If you really think, hey, the market is going to have high inflation, I believe that miners are going to be the best place for my money in a commodity super cycle boom, you might as well invest a little bit in some companies that are really the largest gold miners, the largest silver miners in the world. What about SGP? Related also to energy, what do you think about its annual income? I'm very bullish on energy. However, as a company is very small and micro cap, I am more tempted to really own the three large companies in the Philippines when it comes to energy, which is unfortunately not SGP. The largest energy companies in the Philippines still is Aboitiz Power. You could argue even Meralco still has some power units out there. And yes, a little bit of ASEN because the market cap of ASEN is truly something invested only in the large caps. So I wouldn't want to go very and then of course if you believe in oil and gas, diba, you would be believe on in coal, you would also bet along on DMC and Samarara on dips. That's why we talked about it actually since January, right? And even last year we talked about commodities being a part of your portfolio. Initially, the reason why I was bullish on oil, I didn't know about the war, obviously. I thought that, you know, you are bullish on oil because people would have to purchase oil to go out. Because I was expecting people would go out abroad, mobility will go out. That's why we're bullish on Cebu Pacific. That 41, 42 would be a good entry because people would travel, i.e., your revenge travel spending. But I think what's going to happen is that it might take 2023 or 2024. That doesn't mean that those ideas are long gone. You just need to be bullish on SEB if it goes back to 41, 42. So this is really a trading range. And when you buy here, sell there, buy here, sell there. And you can see that over a span of a year, it's just been trading in a range. Okay, so you should take advantage of these trading ranges in the Cebu Air. So perhaps if you're really bullish on reopening, 45 and 44, as people will do that revenge travel. But how many people can really travel, if you think about it, when this is a discretionary spend? It's a discretionary spend, in my view. People will travel if they feel that they are happy about the future. or they really miss traveling, so they have to travel. But I'm thinking that it will take some time. So yun, are you bullish on Metro Bank? Actually, I'm bullish on the banks, not necessarily Metro Bank. Because I think in an environment like this, who has the highest percentage of net interest income in a rising interest rate? I'm bullish on energy and I'm bullish on financials, but you have to be bullish only at a certain price. So for Metro Bank, I do believe that this is really trading at a very low value. I mean, but the problem with it is that you have to really respect that these are trading within ranges, right? So it's still trading in a range. We're seeing Metro Bank just trade 50 to 60. Lots of buyers here at 50. It is giving a 4% yield. So right now, the market is very much in touch with dividend yield names. And the highest dividend yield names in the sector in the Philippines is the banks. And that's the reason why the banks, utilities, are really getting priced. You can even argue Meralco, Manila Water, there will be some bullishness on them if they fall down. So example, Manila Water, if it falls somewhere here 19, 18, I think some people will buy it because they want the yield. Real estate is not so much a bullish play. And what happened with real estate is that I think a lot of people push their money away from real estate towards the REITs. So the real estate stock has become more of a ghost town. And then the REITs, which is the Real Estate Investment Trust, has become where the party has been. So the Mega World investors started being the M REIT investors, the Ayala Land investors became the A REIT investors. Um, and people actually ask me at some point, wouldn't it make sense that everyone who loves properties, stocks, would just be in the REIT stocks? And that is unfortunately the case here. With an economy that's really more on the somber to neutral to possibly bearish economy, people aren't really gonna park their money in real estate. However, what they'll do is they'll buy the SM REITs, the SM bonds, they'll buy the Ayala REITs, they would still patronize the REITs. So that's how I will interpret the real estate economy and the real estate stocks per se. So I'm not bullish, but I'm not really that bearish. Because if you're really thinking that the economy will someday buy the residential houses, then there is a reason to own Ayala and there's a reason to own Mega World at some price within the next few months. Any thoughts on mining? I've been really bullish on mining. However, I stay away from super small companies. Unfortunately, speculative names, I really go away from penny stocks, no matter if they go 5x or 10x. The problem in my view is that I don't think I have a super high batting average when it comes to trading penny stocks. And I would rather go large scale and large cap mining companies, which happens to be actually for nickel. I was more in the nickel Asia. Even if I knew that, hey, if nickel prices go up, FNI is going to go up and Mark will also go up. So I think like even in gold, my hesitation to really be gold mining in the Philippines is, you know what? I'd rather just own GLD, which is very simple. GLD is just a mirror of gold itself abroad. So siguro, I am bullish mining. I will be honest on that. Pero I have no specific um, incentive to buy a mining stock in the Philippines unless it pays mining dividends. Feel ko that would give me the reason to buy. Kasi the Mark and FNI made a look at it. Sabi ko, okay naman. And I still also published a bullish note on Mark and FNI early on in the year simply because they were publishing good cash dividends. So for me, actually, if you are a minor company and you're really making a ton of money, the market will really appreciate if you could just issue a cash div. So, yun lang yun. Like maybe a 10, 20 cent cash div for FNI was enough to trigger people to say, oh nga, this company is really making money. So I think that was the reason why FNI continued to and will continue to stay above 2.5, even if, it can go down. But, diba, it fell already because tapos na yung cash div, right? Tapos na yung record date ng cash div. But I think that it will stay somewhere here. Magkakaroon ng lots of buyers here at 2.5 or 2.6 because the people who sold would still say to themselves, well, nickel prices aren't going down anytime soon. So yun. Copper, I am bullish on copper. So we were a little bit bullish on Atlas. I would say that Atlas, ang problem talaga sa Philippine miners is the lack of liquidity. But that said, yes, I'm bullish since 7 nga eh. So yan, 6 to 7. It is actually within the range of buying zone for Atlas. So been bullish on 6, 7, 8. So andyan, halos 7 lang din, no? Yeah, halos 7 average lang. I think it's a bullish play on Atlas. So ganyan. I'm more of a buyer here on the dip, pero walang volume. So copper is actually very strong abroad. This is Freeport McMoran, gold and copper. Ayan no, up and up away. And copper is traded at 4.7 right now. Copper futures is trading at 4.7 and 4.75. So since 4.5 broke, I believe that copper rises. Pero here's basic risk nga by the way on copper. People say that in a recession, wala ring money and copper is really more of a demand. Copper is in demand because you're building roads, bridges, buildings. So if China is in a recession, um, maraming magko-question din on how much copper is really gonna be bought. Copper wire is needed as well in batteries, 5G infrastructure. So copper is necessary in infrastructure. So yon, I'm bullish on copper but also hindi ako as super wildly bullish than everyone else. In terms of commodities, mas bullish ako sa silver rather than copper. Because silver right now is massively used in all the photovoltaic panels, i.e. yung mga ASEN, yung mga SPNEC. A lot of the solar panels that they're buying from China is actually maraming silver content yun. So yun, mas bullish ako as a silver from a perspective of the supply demand. Okay, so yun lang. Thank you very much and see you again next week and bye-bye.